serious? What is an alarming fact that the next generation is going to have to deal with? Antibiotics resistance. That we always suspected knew we were ducking up the planet. And we kind of just let it happen. And yet strangely the current generation of 20 to 40 years old are well educated on this yet still flip commodities like phones, computers, TVs etc. at a terrifying rate. The world is becoming more throwaway than ever by the people most educated on its dangers. They even laugh at their parents for keeping cars, phones etc. when new models or technology is available. Even the companies introducing the new technology are started and run by members of the same generation. It's a case of somebody do something as long as it doesn't impact me. We're running out of honeybees. This is literally so important. They are responsible for 1 of every 3 bites of food you eat. They pollinate like 80% of vegetation on Earth, and without them I'm not sure what could take their place. That all their parents' adolescence and young adulthood is shared, stored and accessible, schooling, parties, fun time, private time. But bad indifferent, whole years, decades, a lifetime stored on the web, for their children, and their friends' enemies, to research. I'm really looking forward to whether Facebook will remain the main social network or not. We'll all soon get on our 10th year on Facebook. And many of my friends are digging out very old posts to laugh at each other. Just imagine in 20 years. Just imagine 100 years. I do my family's history and don't have pictures of most of my great-great-grandparents. In 100 years, there will be great-great-grandmothers who posted to are gone wild. That machines are going to displace huge parts of the workforce and we haven't set up an adequate economic model to deal with this. The plastics industry will have to change as oil is prioritized for fuel. The return of real class politics as rich-poor divide becomes extreme. Given how much computing is part of everyday life from young age now, I wonder if IT-based jobs like support will get so many well-trained people it'll become next factory-level job. It already is. And just like factory jobs, much of it is being shipped overseas. Running low on phosphorus. Running low on helium. Running low on fresh water. Yeah, they're going to hate us for using helium in party balloons. Given how much it's needed to make a lot of modern technology and run things like MRI machines. Unless there's alt thing we can use in all of those processes. My kids might not believe me that coral reefs actually existed. Finding Nemo will look like a fantasy in 15 years. Because this is getting attention. Let me add a few things. Yes. Artificial lakes are helping expand existing reefs or grow new ones. But even in ideal conditions, reefs take very long to grow. The Great Barrier Reef is 18 million years old and the current reef is over 8,000 years old. Here is the wiki on ocean acidification, which is a very real problem to reefs, shellfish and all ecosystems of the planet. Read The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Colbert for more information about the very real damage to biodiversity human influence is ravaging. If coral reefs disappear, the ocean will not be able to absorb half as much CO2 and the greenhouse effect will increase dramatically. Hygiene hypothesis. People just start getting very ill because of being too clean. I rarely post. But I hope I'm not late for this party. Full stop. Edit. First successful post in Reddit. Wow. Edit 2. Thanks for gold. Kind stranger. My doctor friends constantly say that the percentage of children with allergies who grow up with dogs is extremely low. And if you happen to grow up on a farm, it's pretty much zero. So yes. Don't be obsessed with cleaning everything. Edit. There are many sources on the internet. But here is, from NPR.org. Global warming is real. And the people in charge have been doing their best to totally ignore it. We are running out of wild elephants and rhinos. The slow and unstoppable loss of our privacy began before they were even born. People with money make the rules. And are also exempt from the rules. People with money make the rules. And are also exempt from the rules. This has always been true for most of human history. Amazed I've gone quite far and not seen the aging population. Essentially this the forthcoming perfect storm of an increasingly healthy, long-living population. As people live longer, the proportion of the world's population not working will increase significantly and disproportionately, and a great number of those older people will be disabled or infirm, requiring significant care. Rains are coming. Not to mention, we tend to value quantity over quality when it comes to living. So as this huge population starts dying, we will spend unfathomable amounts of money on expensive medical interventions just to extend their suffering by a few more months. That spending on infrastructure is essential. If we, in the US, continue to neglect our roads, bridges, railways, etc., then the next generations will legitimately have to worry about bridges collapsing underneath them. Okay, that might be hyperbole, but the US spends less than most other first world countries on maintaining our infrastructure. And we have a hell of a lot of roads to maintain. Edit. Here is a link to a segment from last week tonight with John Oliver about the issue. Kinda related. This is happening to Trillium Rail in Ontario. They neglected a few bridges on a subdivision for so long that now they cannot possibly afford to repair them. And they have to tell their customers that they are shit out of luck for service because they're going to shut it down. That the older generation quickly reaches a point in power where they are a liability to the rest of the world. The millennials are going to have a field day when Gen X starts to retire. We were never big enough to put a dent in the voting bloc that is the boomers. When we get old and crotchety, we won't have the numbers to stop the younger generations from changing everything or from standing on our lawn. There will be very few usernames left. And they won't look very professional on resumes. Edit. Holy shit guys. I meant email addresses. No one put usernames on your resumes. Probably that we need to work together on issues rather than go against each other. If we have two political parties that do nothing but undo each other's policies, we won't get anything done. Having a lot of different antibiotics to choose from was really awesome. Sorry we use them all up by giving them to kids with viral infections and handing them out like candy in many countries. Remember to wear your Purell brand clothing at all times. Actually, human overuse of antibiotics was never the problem. It is use of antibiotics in raising beef, chicken, and other food animals that is causing the issues. If we're complaining about how hard it is to find work now, imagine how hard it's gonna be in the next 20, 30 years with machines replacing people. Google has a car which can drive itself. Damn it. On the other hand, robots will do all the physical work. The exhausting work we don't really like to do. We humans will need to do the thinking part, and this requires predominantly a good education. Democracy requires belief for it to be successful. And our generation's cynicism about the process means that our children will be truly lost. How can democracy ever exist in the long term without a strength of conviction behind it? That there are a lot of children out there who have grown up only knowing America as the place that sends death from the sky. Watching American foreign policy over the next 50 years, given how badly they've ducked up over the past 15, is going to be interesting. 68% of the US population is overweight. 30+% are obese. It's the second leading cause of death in the US. Today, 3.4 deaths in 2010. Ours will heal us all. There may not be enough drinking water and water for irrigation of crops, especially in places like California. Oh, there is plenty. Source: I live in Michigan and am surrounded by fresh water. Acidification of the oceans. We are in for one hell of a rude awakening when the phytoplankton dies. There won't be any jobs on a dead planet. Overpopulation. Overpopulation ruins everything. It's bad for us and it will be worse for the next generation. Edit. Look at the other responses to the ARPS question and ask yourself, would they be as much of a problem if there were a billion people in the world instead of 7 billion? And will they not get worse faster? when the population levels out at 10 to 15 billion people. Lack of social skills. Unemployment on a huge scale. With the rise of driverless automobiles, the transport and taxi industries will cease to employ even 10% of what they do today, leaving millions of fewer jobs. The rise of 3D printing will mean a lot of household objects can be made at home from raw materials, making factories for basic objects obsolete and making millions of jobs redundant. Imagine a world where literally no human being is employable, as machines can do everything faster, more efficiently, safe, and better. There's a great podcast by CGP Grey and Brady Harron from Numberphile on this. The total mechanization of labor means that we are going to have to radically change our economic system. Traditional market economies will not be able to survive the levels of unemployment that will be brought about. I imagine that it will be a rough time before it's all sorted out though. Only when the last tree is cut, the last fish caught, and the last river poisoned, will we find that money cannot be eaten. Cree proverb. In the US, that baby boomers cannot afford to retire. Don't worry, fellow Gen X millennials. It's not just your parents. The most optimistic estimates for the average savings of households headed by a person near retirement age, 55-64, is $100,000. But 40% have nothing saved. So it's skewed. Gen X having a hard time getting promoted because the senior guys won't get out of the way? Yeah, that's not getting better. They can't afford to leave. Millennials, don't sweat it that you still live with your parents. You will soon be returning the favor. Younger generation, whatever you're called, get to work ASAP. We can't afford to send you to college. We're still paying for our student loans and need help funding grandma and grandpa's social security. To be fair, my generation is still trying to fix the massive damage caused by baby boomers, while many of them are still here voting to continue the damage, destruction and plunder. I figure my kids will have to deal with the fact that we were unable to fix it because the boomers still held too much power. With any luck, a new generation, combined with an older generation who didn't grow up in a post-war world with all the jobs and opportunities an entire generation could ever need, will actually get to make some progress. Turns out that enjoying a whole load of social security, excellent public services and a balanced economy to get where you are, then tearing it apart and selling it all for personal gain once you're finished with it, while telling younger folks who have to try to make it on their own they just have to work harder, is a bad long-term call.